There are so many wonderful things to do here in Lilydale this summer, and we're going to share some wonderful things with you today on Wednesdays with Willa. I am your host, Willa White, and this is my weekly podcast show that airs on Wednesday mornings at 10 a.m. Eastern on my Facebook page, Willa White Medium. This also goes out on the Lilydale Assembly Facebook page, as well as my YouTube channel. And this podcast is in year 6 of episodes. I'm wrapping up year 6, and I'll be going on summer hiatus during the summer months of the program, which runs from June 23rd until September 3rd this year. So if you're interested in coming to Lilydale during that time frame, there are lots of events. There are wonderful opportunities for you to learn and grow and be. Hold on. Oh, I thought for a second it wasn't live, but here I am. Just want to carry forward with this. And so I wanted to make sure that everybody has a good opportunity to get excited about the events that are coming this summer. And I have a special guest on the show who's been here before, Shannon Taggart. Thanks for being here today, Shannon.
Thanks for having me, Willa. It's always great to be with you.
Yes, Shannon's been a guest on my show before. We've talked about all kinds of great things, including last year's summer symposium, and we'll be talking about the 2023 this year summer symposium as well. I encourage you to look back at the archive videos of Wednesdays with Willa, especially the shows we've done with Shannon in the past, with Hilma off Clint. She's a wonderful artist that is actually part of the foundations of modern art, and was a spiritualist as well. And a lot of people are still very interested in her work, especially after the Guggenheim exhibit that went on. And I think it's beautiful to go back and listen to. I've had a few other people reach out to me even recently about him off Clint, which is why I wanted to mention it again, because it's a great show for people to refer back to. I think one of the last ones we did was the instrumental transcommunication that spirit does. So if people want to know more about electronic voice phenomenon and things that are happening in modern times that help with those spirit communications and the evidence that people are coming forward with, definitely look back at that. Shannon Taggart has been visiting Lilydale for decades. I met you long ago at Judith Rochester's circle, and we got a chance to learn and grow with mediumship and with spirit. But what's so special about Shannon is that she is a photographer, and she has been able, with an artist's eye, to get photos of spirit, including physical mediumship, where there's ectoplasm and energy that happens in seances. And she's the author of the book Seance. So you can go and check out shannontaggart.com, and you can find information about her book Seance. I know I have my own signed copy.
Yes.
And it's a great book with with fantastic photos, not just of things that have happened here in Lilydale, but around the world, internationally, other mediums that have sat for the purpose of spirit communication, especially physical phenomenon. And you've been able to capture that. And I know that's very interesting and fascinating to a lot of different folks. And one of the other beautiful things that Shannon does is in the summer here in Lilydale, she arranges usually a weekend symposium. And it's an opportunity for various academia, artists, all kinds of scientific-minded or philosophers to come to Lilydale and share their findings. And I'm going to let Shannon talk a little bit more about what's involved with that, so that you can make your plans to come to Lilydale this summer and take part in it.
Thanks. Yes, so my program began when I was working on my book. I started going to academic conferences, and I realized there was all this new scholarship happening about spiritualism and related topics, like through history of politics or art and science. And a lot of my spiritualist friends didn't know that this was going on. And then a lot of the people I met at these conferences had never been to a spiritualist camp or seen a medium, depending on the academic. Some had never engaged with an actual spiritualist, or some had, but had never really explored the culture very much. So I wanted to bring this theory and practice, these worlds of theory and practice together. And a lot of people are, I found, with my book Seance, that a lot of people are interested in the topic, but maybe they wouldn't, they'd have to put a toe in to go and explore, visit. And there's a lot of, misunderstanding around the topic of spiritualism, I think. And now its important place in culture is being reassessed. And I wanted to celebrate this and highlight it and bring a new audience to Lily Dell. I was meeting a lot of creatives, a lot of artists, a lot of people who have researched around the topic and then were being learning about spiritualism. So my program I see it as kind of like a borderland program, like an introductory program in many ways, but it also brings a lot of fresh ideas into Lily Dell for people who are super familiar with spiritualism, but have forgotten or don't know about these very interesting cultural connections, creative connections, new work that's being done.
Yes, yes. Sometimes we can become very insulated in that spiritual framework that I'm with spirit, or I'm on my healing path, or however that works for people, and they don't have access to what other people are exploring. So I think it's wonderful that you have been able to merge those things, and there have been a lot of interest and discussion that has been able to build over the years from this. I know I've attended some of the symposium events and prior years, and I really enjoyed last year's events. They're such a great amalgamation of great minds that you had brought together, and they're able to explore. I especially love the one about lightning, and how lightning has brought about people's psychic or mediumship abilities sometimes and activated them a little bit more and become a catalyst. I thought that was a really fascinating one. I know a lot of people would be like, "Ooh, that's something they would be too." And it's great that you're able to do this and merge those two worlds. I know some of those people who are university professors or professionals in other categories, they're making room in their lives for the sacred. So they're not just living in a secular world. They can see the inspiration that comes to them and through them from the God source, the divine source, however they want to reference it in that way.
Yes. And this year I expanded the program.
Yeah.
I have been getting a lot of requests. People come in every year for the symposium, and I've been getting a lot of requests. I'm traveling all this way. Would you make it 2 days? And so it is kind of it's very complicated because there's so many speakers, but I was able to put it together, and really excited. I couldn't be more thrilled with the lineup that we have this year. It's really a treat to have all these incredible creators and thinkers and academics and artists in town at the same time. So
Yes.
I'm really looking forward to the conversation it inspires. I'm trying to bring different mindsets together to engage and spark new conversations about all of these strange topics. A lot of the topics are very they're hard to talk about, and they're also, a lot of times it's difficult for academics to address these topics. And so, one of the presentations will be with Charles and Penelope Emmons, who live in town in Lilydale. And Charles is a sociologist who braved these waters, has been braving these waters since the 80s. And I'm excited for his and Penelope. They've done books together addressing these topics that they're complicated to publish on. He's done work on UFOs, and they've talked about personal experiences with mediumship. And, so that's one element. And I'm bringing in new people who are engaging these topics now in the climate today, which is more open in ways, but also is not. And also our culture is really divided right now. And I think that some of the beauty of these topics that surround spiritualism is they bring together many audiences.
Yes, it does. It draws from the different springs of life, shall we say. And some of the people who are in academia, they wouldn't know how to talk about this except in that kind of higher mind way. But when they are able to then come to Lilydale, they start to see some of it in action, especially if it's something that historically, when they've been able to research some of the mediumship of ancient times. Leonard George, for instance, he's been a guest on the show, and he's also been part of Shannon's Symposium in the past. And he's been able to really meld those things together and bring that which was ancient into the modern understanding and make it accessible, not just to his students, but now that he's retired, in his lectures. And I'm glad he's able to carry that forward and educate people. And that's what a lot of your presenters do. They're able to take what they've learned in their different careers and then see that sacred spin upon it and set it in motion for other people.
Yes. Yeah. So this year it actually kicks off with an event on Thursday night, which this is all new. So it's a very new approach to the program.
Well, we should tell them the dates. The dates that this starts is Thursday, July 27th, that evening. And she's just about to tell you what launches this. And then it goes until Saturday, July 29th. So if anybody wants to mark their calendars right now, July 27th to July 29th. And there's a whole package that you can attend everything for a certain price, or they can attend each event separately, correct?
Yeah, if you buy the ticket for for Thursday night, all day Friday, all day Saturday, you save. It's a cheaper ticket there. You save a little bit of money doing the whole package.
Right, rather than the single day tickets.
Right, and this year it's a little different because there's only single day tickets. There's not individual. Each day,
okay,
Friday and Saturday has 7 presentations. So
yeah,
it's
in the big auditorium building here in Lilydale. So you got lots of room in there for people. And then that's one of those places where it's kind of, you're enclosed, but you do have that space. And I'm assuming a lot of people will be set up on the stage, so you'll be able to see and hear the presenters as they share.
Yeah, there'll be visual presentations like every year, and even there will be a piano performance as part of one of the presentations.
Wow.
So the presenter is Doug Skinner. He's been a guest in the past for now he works on anomalous music and music credited to non-human authors or to spirits or fairies or aliens. And finally his book about this topic is going to be published, and it's called Music from Elsewhere. And it was one of our all-time best hits in the history of the symposium. So Doug is willing to come back and is going now be with his book and will be playing some of the tunes. It's a really, really exciting presentation. I will be one of the speakers as well. Now, I guess I'm jumping ahead because we were started about Thursday.
That's okay. So that's okay.
Let's start with Thursday. So Thursday night, we're going to kick off with one of my favorite podcasts, Weird Studies. They're going to do a live podcast recorded in Lilydale. And the podcast is, it's mostly about topics of the weird or rifts in reality and the way that relates to art and culture. And so they're drawing from, their topics are drawn from popular culture, from fine art, from writing. I was a guest, they interview people. So I really love their frame. It's a fresh frame on, it's a way of thinking about all these things that are classified as like strange or hard to deal with or complicated in ways of looking at the world. So I'm really excited for that. It's going to be a lot of fun. And so that'll be our kickoff. And then Friday, we'll start with the 7 presentations. I will be one of those.
Beautiful, beautiful.
And yes. And so my idea for the Friday was all about books. So my book Seance is now in a new edition. It's finally, it was sold out for a long time. So now it's in a second edition. And before I did my own book, I didn't realize how magical books are and the whole process of bringing a book together. And I was thinking about that and I thought, why don't I do a whole day of authors where they can not only talk about their book, but also talk about the process of bringing the book into being, which is a form of mediumship in and of itself,
Yes, inspirational talking,
yes.
Inspirational writing, sometimes automatic writing in the case of an author too.
Yeah. And so I thought that day could have the double dimension of, we're talking about the content of these phenomenal books, but we're also talking about the process that brought them into being and all of that inspiration and creativity and hard work that goes into doing that.
Yeah, what generates it and what sustains the momentum of inspiration, especially if you feel divinely guided to write a book.
Yes. So it's a day of books that I am a super fan of all of these books. And also my own book. It's the first time I will ever be able to talk in Lilydale with my physical book. I have spoken on my work before in Lilydale, but I've never had my book with me when I've done it. It's never been available for it wasn't out when I did a previous presentation, and then it was sold out when I did another one. So but I did do my launch. Yes, your
book launch.
I did do a book launch where I had physical books, but this is the first time in the summer that I've ever actually had my books with me. So I'm for anybody who's already seen that presentation of mine, it will be updated. Beautiful. And so we'll start off with Reclaiming Art with J.F. Martel, who's one of the hosts of Weird Studies, and I absolutely love his book. It's a really deep think on why art is important, and it was like really inspirational to me. The second lecture will be about a very fascinating figure named Ethel Calhoun. And Amy Hale spent 20 years working on this book, and this woman was very unknown, much like Hilma af Klint. She was an artist, and now is her whole body of work is being reassessed. The Tate in England is going to be doing a huge exhibition of her work, and Amy's scholarship has been so important. And it's I can identify with, because when she started it, nobody had heard of this woman nor much considered her important. And because of Amy's work on the topic, she's brought this body of work into a larger audience. And so then we're also going to do a presentation about Ted Serios. Have you heard of Ted Serios, Willa?
I haven't. No, tell me all about it.
So in the 1970s, there was a man named Ted Serios who claimed he could project his thoughts onto Polaroid film.
Oh, yes.
And he was studied by a lot of parapsychologists. It was a big pop culture moment that then, got forgotten. But his art, the archive, was saved by a parapsychologist named Stephen Brody, saved it at the University of Maryland. And now finally there will be a book that delves very deeply into the case and presents all the images, and there has commentary from scholars and photo historians and people other than parapsychologists kind of weighing in. So, for me, in my own work, I'm very interested in saving these archives that one audience thinks should just be thrown in a garbage, like there's a lot of debate about, a lot of people say, oh, that he thought he could put his thoughts on Polaroids, like why does anybody want that? And this presentation will be all about exactly why we want to look at this and understand this, and why it's interesting even to non-believers, even if you don't believe that Ted Sirios could ever do this. It's a very fascinating story. So I'm always thinking of multiple audiences and how we can connect people with different ways of viewing it. And so that will be a new book coming out, and I'm so excited for that. I've been so interested, obviously, because of the photography.
Yes, photography, the whole art, and how that all happened.
Yeah, and then
especially Polaroid. It's not like he went into and developed it.
Well, yeah, that the history. I've thought of that too, and maybe that's a topic for another day. Like there's been so many cases of people using Polaroid because of the purity of the process. You're not sending it to a lab. You're not. Right. It's not going through multiple. Like a whole darkroom process and then a printing process. It's all instantaneous. Yeah. So there have been a lot of fascinating paranormal experiments with Polaroid. Cool. And so then I mentioned Charles and Penelope. We'll talk about, Charles has done many books and has braved, being a sociologist in academia, and also being a healer and a spiritualist, and being married to a medium. And then also I thought it was interesting to speak to them about being a married couple and working on a book together. I think that speaks to a process that is very unique also. So I think they're going to be able to give us a lot of different angles about thinking about books in this way. Mm-hmm. And then the next presentation is by a woman named Allison Meyer, who is a cemetery. She does a cemetery tour guide. And, Willa, maybe you could fill me in on this, but spiritualism, it kind of has a complicated relationship with the cemetery because of the belief, right. And
well, it's not like if you had a choice, you're going to go hang out in a cemetery after you passed. A lot of times cemeteries, as far as spiritualists go, are for the living, and it's because they can usually connecting in nature, but also that sense of here's this permanence of the stone that I can touch, that helps me to connect, and I can maybe have my fingers trace the letters of my loved one's name, and I can leave things there. And it's that concept of this is a place I could really let myself go and talk to them. A designated location of safety, I suppose. And so it's really helpful. And spirit does meet people there. It's just when you go to a cemetery, it's not like it's a whole crowd of people going, hey, medium, I need to talk to you. It's just not like that.
Right. Spiritualists believe that you don't need to be in a cemetery to connect with the dead. No.
And so often a person's loved ones in spirit, they're indicating the ways that they are around the client or recipient in particular ways, like visiting them in their home if they're open to that, or hey, I noticed that this happened for you at work, congratulations, or I really like watching your daughter do these things in her life, and if a spirit was just hanging out in a cemetery, they're going to miss all of that.
Right. And so one interesting thing about Allison is because she's a tour guide in New York City, she's led tours to a lot of famous spiritualist graves. And Molly Fancher, she was a medium called the Brooklyn Enigma, and there's a beautiful piece of her spirit work hanging in the Maplewood.
Yeah, if you go to the Lilydale Maplewood Hotel, you can see evidence of her work. Just gorgeous.
And the Fox sisters' grave, Allison and I toured around Greenwood Cemetery, where she does a lot of tours. And there are so many famous spiritualists buried there, and people who were like really big names at the time that aren't so well known, such as Horace Greeley, who is one of the big newspaper guys who turned spiritualist. And she designed this whole spiritualism tour, and she's going to talk about her research and kind of the role in the cemetery in the lives of the living. Rather than, from that angle. And she's a total expert and has done so much fascinating work on the symbolism, and like, so she's going to decode some things for us, thinking about the Victorian cemetery.
Yeah, because they had different ways of looking at the cemetery, but and what they did for the so-called dead.
Yes.
So that'll be a neat talk.
Yeah, I think it'll be really good. And then I'll be presenting, and then the end of that day will be Doug Skinner. I mentioned him earlier, and he's going to be on the piano, and it's just a true treat, that presentation, really. And so then on Saturday, the idea for that day was more scholarship around the topic, or people who are studying or writing or doing research on topics about spiritualism or related to spiritualism, or talking about the history. So it's not so much about books, it's more about like different areas that are unexplored. And so we're going to have a Lilydale local kick it off, Shelly Taggart. I'm always nervous I'm going to say that wrong.
Sometimes people say Taggart, but
yeah, well, because
I think she rolls with it.
Yeah. So Shelly, she's a founder of Women's Day in Lilydale. She owns Angel House. She has a really amazing story about synchronicity and the magic of Lilydale that personally affected her. But she's going to talk about spiritualism's very interesting and unique relationship with science, how it was so important to the women's rights movement, how it's hard. She's going to explain why it's so hard to define spiritualism and how it's looked at in different ways by different practitioners within the religion. It's a religion of radicals, and she's going to go really deep into that in her presentation. And then the second one is new scholarship about one of the most famous media or spiritualists of all time, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. And there's an independent scholar named Michael Homer who's done so much on Conan Doyle. And so this will be about kind of a complicated thing that happened with Doyle, where he thought he was being fooled by one of the spirits in his home circle. And so this kind of trickster thing that Conan Doyle couldn't figure out, and he's using primary sources that have never been presented before. So we're going to hear this story. It'll be it's not been published on, and he's working with the primary materials.
That is cool. And for people who are like, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, that name rings a bell. He's the author of the Sherlock Holmes stories, but he was also a big time spiritualist. In fact, he wrote the history of spiritualism, and his wife was a medium. And he had correspondence with Houdini and all kinds of people from all over the world, but he did lecture extensively about the beautiful things of spiritualism, and attended a lot of different seances, readings, and started to try to discern the fraud fiction from the real thing. And that was really important to him. So yeah, that would be a fascinating lecture.
Yeah, such an important figure. And so then the next talk is about a man named Raymond Buckland. And so I think maybe we have brought up Raymond Buckland before, but I knew him a little bit in Lilydale. He spent, towards the end of his life, he spent summers in Lilydale. He was kind of a figure about town. He's actually in one of the pictures in my book. So did you know Raymond Buckland personally?
Yeah, we chatted a few times, but not extensively. He had his British accent, and his beard is all kind of trimmed up, and he was a beloved author of many books, spiritual books, and he kind of delved into the occult but I think he started to feel much more of an affinity with spiritualism toward the end of his life, even more so. And people have really looked up to him in terms of his writing and what he was able to do.
Yeah, I think he's he's culturally important. He's one of the first people to bring Wicca, or witchcraft as a religion, to America. He was hugely influential in the 60s and 70s, and he's written many books, and he kind of highlights this. I don't know how to put it. There's a tension between paganism and spiritualism.
Oh, absolutely, a tension there.
And because people put those things together, and practitioners of each see them as very different.
Yes.
And so I thought what a perfect figure to talk about these events, because there are some points of connection between spiritualism and paganism, of course, because you have talking to ancestors and being inspired by nature, but the issue of magic and what spiritualists do versus what practicing pagans or witches do is different. So Raymond Buckland's archive is in a museum in Cleveland. And so the person who is the executive director of this museum and owns Raymond's archive is going to talk about Raymond's life and how spiritualism was a huge influence on him his entire life. But really at the end, he was very much focused on spiritualism towards the end of his life. Mm-hmm. And I just think it'll be a fascinating talk, because we'll be able to talk about all these the complications between these two ways of thinking about
right, because they're definitely, you can't equate them in your mind. So for people who are new to spiritualism, they may have that misunderstanding, but I do feel that Raymond Buckland tried to really make the distinctions and honor both. But
absolutely.
I think really looked at Lilydale as a spiritual home for himself too.
So it's going to be a great talk. Mm-hmm. And then the next one I'm so excited for. It's about the Shakers, who hugely like a huge precursor to spiritualism as a
modern spiritualism.
Yes, to modern spiritualism in America is the Shaker movement. And in American culture, one of the most beautiful, creative, most important design moments is the Shaker, Shaker furniture, Shaker design. And most people know about that, but what they don't know is that a lot of those designs were inspired by spirit. Like that whole moment of Shaker creativity and all that pure craftsmanship and beautiful design comes from a point when they were getting inspired by spirits and getting directed by spirits. And it's a moment it's new. This is very new scholarship. And the artist who's going to be talking about it, she's done residencies at Shaker villages. She worked with some of the last living Shakers. She's going to explain not a lot about what Shakers believe, who they are, but also about this amazing period of time called the era of manifestations in Shaker history. And there's not a lot out there on this topic and the way Maria is framing it. So I'm just so excited for that.
That'll be great. And Shakers, they did believe in feeling that call of the divine and coursing through them and the channeling of that.
Yes, with dance and their different practices. And it was kind of like a utopian thing, and there was celibacy involved, and
which doesn't bode well for the continuation of a religion.
Right. So now it's has died out, but it's so important to American history, American religious history, and the history of spiritualism also. So that's so excited for that. And then we have two very special guests coming from all the way from London, from the College of Psychic Studies, which is one of those purely unique places, much like Lilydale, which has been keeping this history alive and in practice since the late 1800s. So College of Psychic Studies is actually a townhouse in London. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle was once a president, a past president, also the very famous spiritualist Reverend William Stanton Moses. So a lot of the big spiritualist names in England were associated with the college. And they have kept this archive. They're one of the reasons, now people are interested in spirit art, but when they weren't, this college was keeping this archive safe, showing it on display. They're also do psychic study. They hold classes online and in person. They have this huge library that very, very famous researchers have drawn from and used. So the principal of the college, Gillian Mattini, is going to tell us all about this fascinating history. And I mean, it also held the lab where Harry Price tested some of the most famous mediums ever, like Helen Duncan and Eileen Garrett. And we're going to hear, I mean, the history of this place is just phenomenal. And so we're going to hear all about it. And she's coming all the way from London to tell us.
And it's so difficult to imagine because each talk is only like not even an hour usually, right?
Yeah, we do 45 minutes.
Yeah, so it's like, how are they supposed to jam all of that in there? Wow.
I know, you know what? It is a marathon. It's a marathon, but there's a huge, I give 2
Bring
hour
your
break.
seat cushion.
Yeah.
That's what I plan to do.
And there is a 2 hour lunch break so you can relax and unwind and go to the stump and like let your brain pause. And we do have short pauses in between, but it really is a marathon of information. So the next session is with Vivian Roberts, who is the archivist and curator at the College of Psychic Studies. And one of my all-time favorite artists is Madge Gill. And Vivian's gonna tell the very interesting story about her and her work. And she's considered like one of the most famous outsider artists. That's a term that they used to use. Now it's more visionary art, but it crosses these lines between outsider art, spirit art. Like her story is very complicated. Her work is so beautiful and so iconic, and it's only gaining in popularity. And Vivian has done really important research about the life of Madge Gill. And so we'll see a lot of her beautiful works and hear about her really interesting story. And Vivian is the expert to be doing it. So it'll be it's just going to be such a treat for that.
Beautiful.
And then we're going to end with one of the hosts of Weird Studies, Phil Ford. And
so you got the bookends.
Yes. So they have the first word and the last word. And they're just such great thinkers and amazing philosophers of the strange and the weird. And he's going to talk about it's got a funny title, The Trash Stratum. It's kind of about how things that kind of how I framed it before, things that are supposed to be meaningless or seem to be discarded or unimportant can play a really important role in spiritual development and ways of thinking. And even, in spiritualism, there is so much of this being accused of deceit and what's true and what's false. And, there's stereotypes of all mediums are frauds. And he's going to kind of do a deep dive into this very complicated aspect of spirituality when you come against this thing of the true and the false. And I don't know exactly the angle he's going to take. I just am very excited to have his fresh take on this, kind of coming from where his point of view and his study. So it'll be framed, it'll reference spiritualism, but it'll be framed culturally in a different way.
Sure. And I think that's the distinction to be made. As spiritualists, we start to recognize that communication with those that have passed is not weird. We don't look at that as weird. We don't look at that as abnormal. We look at that as the absolute normal and as the truth of things. And so I think that even within you, there's probably that like, no, this isn't weird. This is what is so divinely guided in our lives to have this connection with our own souls and the souls of others, and that love never dies. And so I think if we can transcend that word weird,
Well,
that's
I
what we'll
think
think about
also
going
they're
forward.
trying to re-own it or retake it, and
Oh, look at that. They're like, we own
you know,
it.
but I mean, it is because you're running against rational materialism, and spiritualists believe in natural law, and that
Yeah.
what we're doing is just like a natural part of reality, but that's not the way it's framed by rational materialists, so yeah, so I think it's kind of, I should say it this way, it's kind of like a re-embracing of what they term the weird,
Mhm.
and they'll be able to
Good.
speak to their philosophy on it. And
Sure. And their
I think it's opening,
experiences.
I think by using that term, though, it opens this whole new lane into um a way of talking about things that other terms don't. And
Well,
so
like some people go, ooh, weird. That means I need to go check it out.
yeah.
It's kind of like the P.T. Barnum effect of
Yeah,
what's
I've had
exotic.
people even say, oh, the title, if people just hear the title Weird Studies, they're gonna go to that event. That's what somebody somebody said to me.
Pretty much. They'll be
Um,
like, oh, yep, take my money. It said
yeah,
weird. I need to
yeah.
go see if it's really weird.
But their conversation is really, really interesting, and the way they frame and discuss these topics. So I'm certain, I'm really looking forward to, because exactly what he does at the end will be a surprise to me, the angle that he takes. And so and there is like a kind of a thread going through that whole day of the true and the false, and how
Yes.
that flickers in these practices. Even
True.
Shelley Takei's talk is going to talk about, she's going to talk about a personal experience that she is not saying is arguing is literally true, but is she believes is true. It speaks to like a past life experience that she had in a synchronicity with moving to Lilydale, and that and her and I talked about how there are certain elements in it that goes against that line about what's
Mhm.
actually happening here.
Right. Because, ultimately everybody has their own reality, and then there's the reality.
Yes.
So, yeah, it all comes from those different perspectives. So let's just refresh everybody's memories about the dates that this summer symposium is going on. So it'll start on Thursday, and July 27th, and it
Yes.
goes till Saturday, July 29th. And you can purchase that as a whole 3-day package or a single day ticket. And that's available on the lilydaleassembly.org website. But I've also linked it in the post of this particular podcast, that you can click on Shannon's website link for all of that layout of information, so that you can also register from her website into the Lilydale one.
Yeah, and my website, I have all the abstracts listed. So if
Yes.
you want to read
All the
what
detail
all the
about every single
details are,
speaker.
what talk. And so
Yeah.
it's they're long marathon days, but they're really, really fun. And
Fascinating. Yeah.
it's just a lot. And then, there's short breaks in between everyone. And this year the coffee shop is being reopened. And so
Yes. Yes. So you could get your energy with coffee or a snack, or and
yeah,
the other restaurants will be open as well during the summer season. So you could take advantage of some of those, or you could pack your own lunch too. So for the people who like to bring their own, there are different picnic benches that are around Lilydale, and I'll put in the
yeah,
pavilion as well, and lots of little places to walk next to the lake or into the woods if you'd like a little nature fix as you're
and
doing
yeah,
this.
and I believe that we should have all the books there
Oh,
for,
there you go too.
so you
So
can purchase books and get them signed by the authors. And we'll be in the auditorium this year. This is the first time.
Yeah.
Usually we're in Assembly Hall, but this year we're going to be in the
Yeah,
auditorium.
and it's always been jam-packed in the Assembly Hall, so it's good that you have this option.
Yeah, there'll be a little more space.
Room, and especially if you're going to have books and book signings and all of those things going on, you're going to need that extra room and space. So my big advice to you is to go ahead and register and get your ticket early. If you're wanting, bring your seat cushion, as I said. And they only allow water in the auditorium, so don't bring any sticky drinks in or food. Just everybody letting you know in advance so you can plan accordingly. And you're going to want to make sure that you book your hotel or your guest house or any of those well in advance. You may even have to stay off the grounds because summer is such a popular time to be in Lilydale. So just make your plans accordingly. And you can find more information about the Lilydale events on the lilydaleassembly.org website. Did you have some other things you wanted to share with us?
No, just if anybody has any questions, I'm very happy to, I have the email link on my site and right on the event page. If you go to shannontaggart.com events, you'll scroll down and you'll see the Lilydale thing. And because for some people it's a trek to come into Lilydale, and so they want to know travel stuff, and I'm happy to answer any questions if anybody has any, or about the program itself.
Yes, beautiful. And there are lots of other workshops that are happening. The Tibetan monks will be here again. The Crystal Skull is going to be here. There are all kinds of amazing folks that are coming to Lilydale this summer. So definitely make your plans now.
And even that Thursday before the Weird Studies kickoff at night, Marjorie Roth is doing the Tarantella, which is a reboot. We did that last year and it was great. So it's part of last year's program is being represented by Lilydale.
Yeah, so Marjorie Roth, she was part of the summer symposium that Shannon did last year, and she did the Tarantella dance and the mysticism that's associated with that dance, and using that dance as a form of healing. And I was part of that class. So, if wear a skirt, have your shawl, or, if you don't have to have any of that, it's just kind of fun to have those things. If you want some props as she teaches you the dance. But there's a whole lovely lecture that helps explain the significance of things, the historical understandings, the mystical underpinnings of all of that. And Marjorie Roth has been a guest on my show before, so you can check out the archive videos. She came on and she talked about Sibyls, those ancient oracles, and the connections of Sibyls and modern mediumship today with spiritualism. So that would be a great video to go back and look at it as well. My goodness, we've covered a lot of ground. There's a lot to look forward to this summer, but especially your symposium. And before I forget, I teach online classes, and one of the things that I am offering for the next couple of weeks is video viewing access to one of the classes I've done, online classes I've done, the video, and it comes with a bonus handout, and it's about spirit guides. So if you are interested in learning about spirit guides, meeting spirit guides, and developing a relationship and really seeing how they are working with you in your life and in your spiritual development, then I encourage you to check that out on my website. You can also find it on my Facebook page, the link to purchase viewing for that. It's only until May 17th. So you only have the next 2 weeks to take advantage of that particular offer. It's only limited to that. And then next week, you can look forward, guest on my show is Dot McCarthy. And she's a beautiful, I call her the fairy godmother of Lilydale. And she's a retired psychiatric nurse and spiritual healer. And she's talked about many different things regarding mental health, but also last one we did was dealing with ingratitude. This one will be mother guilt. So if you've ever experienced mother guilt and you felt like, oh, I didn't do right by my child in some way, and I will talk about it from the perspective of a medium and what those in spirit tell me about their mother guilt and how they work to resolve that with their children that are still in the living. And so it's just a fascinating topic that'll gear us up for Mother's Day that's happening this month. And then the week after that, I'll have John Holland on. We'll talk about the power of the soul, especially as it relates to your life's purpose. So a lot of great shows to look forward to in the coming weeks. And I'm just so grateful that you came on the show today, Shannon. I think people could get really excited about joining in your symposium.
Thank you for having me. And it means a lot that you also enjoy the symposium and have been a supporter and an attendee. Yeah. And so it's just great to be on and talking with you about it. Thanks.
Yes. And we'll have you back again soon. But thank you so much, everyone. Have a wonderful week. God bless. Bye-bye.
Bye.